Welcome to this episode of our program Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing important topics. Today we'll be covering the meetings and the high ranking officials and leaders the President has met today in order to contain the situation in Gaza, over Gaza, and how to discuss the situation in Gaza. And definitely Egypt has started to receive the leaders and the Secretary General of the UN and the high-ranking officials of countries who are supposed to be participating in this upcoming important conference that will be taking place on Saturday in Cairo, here where the President has already called for such important conference in order to be able to discuss the very deteriorating situation in the Gaza Strip, the dire humanitarian crisis, and definitely the ongoing escalation in violence by the Israeli occupying forces. President Sisi today has already met with or received the Jordanian King, King Abdullah II, and the two leaders have discussed during their meeting a range of important issues. On top of them, of course, was the Gaza Strip, where both agreed and rather confirmed their refusal and rejection to the displacement of Palestinians here in the or in Jordan, and definitely have called on the international community to pressure the Israeli side to halt its escalation in violence and to open some paths for the humanitarian aid. Tomorrow we'll be seeing the opening of Rafah crossing the other side in order to be able to deliver the aid. That has President Sisi insisted while meeting today with the U.S. or the commander of the U.S. Central Command here in Egypt. That was reiterated by Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry while meeting with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. We'll be speaking about all that in our episode today. Before we delve into our discussion, let me first have a quick look on the top story of the day. And President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi received on Thursday Jordan Kings Abdullah bin bin al-Hussein. Presidential spokesman Councillor Ahmed Fahmy said that the two leaders held a discussion session during which President Sisi welcomed his brother, the Jordanian King, to his second homeland, Egypt, and expressed satisfaction with the pace of development of the close bilateral relations between the two brotherly countries and means of boosting them in various fields. The two leaders also stressed the importance of continued bilateral consultations and coordination at the highest political levels between both countries. During the meeting, the two leaders discussed the current military escalation in the Gaza Strip and the deterioration of the security and humanitarian conditions of the Palestinian people in Gaza, as well as the fall of thousands of martyrs and wounded. Both leaders reiterated their strong condemnation of the bombing of Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital and all acts of targeting civilians, and stressed the necessity for continuing the entry of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip through the Rafah crossing in a sustainable way, while emphasizing the rejection of the policies of collective punishment, including siege, starvation, and displacement of Palestinians from their lands to Egypt or Jordan. They also warned of the extreme danger of these calls and policies and their repercussions on the regional security. Councillor Fahmy said that the two leaders discussed the tireless efforts made by Egypt and Jordan to push for calm and reduce escalation, and affirmed the firm position of both countries, of which is the importance of the Palestinian people obtaining their legitimate rights in their independent state, with East Jerusalem as the capital according to the relevant decisions of international legitimacy, in a way that provides peace, security and prosperity for all people of the nation. Right, and also on Thursday, President Sisi received the commander of the U.S. Central Command, here in Cairo, in attendance of General Mohammed Zaki, Minister of Defense and Military Production. Presidential spokesman, Councillor Ahmed Fahmy, stated that the two sides stressed the keenness to strengthen the strategic partnership between Egypt and the United States, as well as intensifying existing cooperation and coordination in various fields, especially military and security, in light of the importance of supporting efforts to restore security and stability and consolidate peace in the Middle East region. Councillor Fahmy added that the meeting witnessed discussion of a number of issues of mutual concern, particularly the development in the Gaza Strip, where President Sisi reviewed Egypt's efforts to reduce escalation, stressing the importance of concerted efforts of the international community to push towards containing the crisis situation and stopping its escalation in dangerous directions, and shifting to the approach of reviving the peace path based on the solution of two states living side by side in peace and security, taking into account the danger of the security consequences of this conflict extending to the entire region. The humanitarian situation in Gaza Strip was also discussed, and the head of state stressed the importance of continuing to deliver humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people in the Strip in a sustainable manner as a top priority in light of the deteriorating humanitarian conditions in the steppe. And also on Thursday, Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry held talks with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in Cairo to review the deteriorating humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. During a joint press conference following their talks, Minister Shoukry said that the two sides had agreed on the importance of reaching a ceasefire in Gaza and stressed the significance of establishing a Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital. The top diplomat said the upcoming summit in Cairo on Saturday, called by President Sisi, would focus on reaching a consensus with the international humanitarian principles to de-escalate the violence in Gaza, reach a ceasefire and allow humanitarian aid to flow into the Gaza Strip. On his spot, Guterres deplored the targeting of civilians in Gaza and reiterated that they should be protected. In this respect, he affirmed that attacking hospitals contradicts with the international law, and also reiterated that humanitarian aid should be allowed into Gaza. The meeting took place within the framework of joint coordination and efforts to de-escalate violence and contain a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. And the UN Secretary General has already praised Egypt's pivotal role in its seeking peace for the whole region. Right, before we delve into our discussion, let's first have this quick report, and President Sisi continue with his extensive talks to leaders all over the world to contain the situation in Gaza. Let's watch.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi discussed with South African counterpart Cyril Ramaphosa current regional situation and the continuing escalations in the Gaza Strip. During a phone call, the two leaders agreed on the danger and threat the current situation represents to regional stability in a way that requires reducing tension and eliminating violence. Both leaders agreed on the necessity to provide immediate protection for civilians and reject the displacement, stressing the necessity of providing safe and urgent access to relief aid to the people of Gaza. They underscored the urgent need to provide immediate and safe access for humanitarian assistance and relief to the people in the Gaza Strip, given the deteriorating humanitarian conditions which are now on the verge of a catastrophe. President el-Sisi reviewed Egypt's relentless efforts in this regard. President el-Sisi also reviewed Egypt's efforts to mobilize the international community toward consensus on pushing forward the peace track based on the two-state solution and in accordance with the relevant terms of reference of international legitimacy. Earlier, in a press conference during his meeting with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, President el-Sisi emphasized Egypt's support for the Palestinian cause and firm rejection of any attempts to displace the Palestinian people, stressing that the Palestinian cause is the mother of all causes and has a significant impact on security and stability. He asserted that Gaza is currently under Israeli control, and he reaffirmed Egypt's long-standing support for the establishment of a Palestinian state. The Egyptian leader stated that Egypt had not closed the Rafah border crossing, explaining that Israeli airstrikes on the Palestinian side of the crossing had nonetheless hindered its operation. He also expressed concerns that the ongoing events in Gaza are an attempt to force Palestinians to seek refuge in Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, asserting that if Gazans are displaced to Egypt, then Palestinians in the West Bank could be displaced to Jordan. If there is a notion of displacing the Palestinian people, President El-Sisi suggested instead moving them to the Negev desert in Israel until Israel is able to defeat Hamas and Islamic Jihad, after which Palestinians could return to their homeland. In a direct and clear statement, the Egyptian leader said that the displacement to Sinai means transferring the attacks against Israel to Egyptian territories, which threatens the peace between Israel and a country of 105 million people. The head of state noted that moving them to Egypt is a military operation that could last years, stressing that Egypt would bear the repercussions if Sinai became a new base of operations against Israel. In that case, Israel would have the right to defend itself and its national security, albeit through attacks on Egyptian land, and then the peace Egyptians have worked for would slip from hands, as would resolution to the Palestinian issue. In a show of solidarity, El-Sisi revealed that millions of Egyptians are ready to protest any attempts to displace Palestinians from Gaza, reiterating Egypt's rejection to the liquidation of the Palestinian cause and any relocation to Sinai.
Right, and to highlight the meetings that took place today and the situation in Gaza, we have with us over the phone His Excellency Ambassador Medhat El Meligi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good evening to you, Your Excellency.
Good evening to you.
Right. We've seen today meetings made by President Sisi receiving the Jordanian King and earlier receiving the commander of the U.S. command here in the Central Command here in Cairo, where a number of messages were given by the President. Let me take your reading to the messages given by the President today. Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I do now. Yes. You were
Right.
asking me about the messages given by the President. I think
Indeed. Indeed.
we have two sets of messages, if we may call them so. The first one is addressed to the local public, which I'm talking here about the Egyptians. It was very important during this to reassure the Egyptian public once again that the idea of having to host a certain number that could exceed hundreds of thousands of Palestinians on the Egyptian land, namely Sinai, is out of the question. And this was quite clear actually yesterday and today once again. His Excellency has made clear this point. And this was very important to reassure the Egyptians who are really worried about the possibility of having such an option in front of them.
If I may just comment, Your Excellency, it's a double-edged message. It's not just for Egyptians to assure them, it's to the whole world.
I said there are two sets of messages. That's what I meant.
Please.
So the other set of messages is to address the same message to the other side. And whoever the other side may be, we want to make sure that the Palestinian moving into Egypt is not an option. Besides that, there was, of course, the main thing, which is how are we going to restore peace in the occupied territories and in Israel? And I think this is even a harder task because what we've seen, I mean, so far we are approaching 4,000 deaths in the Palestinian camp. And it's as Mr. Guterres himself, the Secretary General of the United Nations, called it today, that this is a collective punishment and it's not acceptable by the United Nations. So we have a clear cut here that shows that what Israel is doing is not acceptable by the international community represented by the Secretary General of the United Nations. But having said that, the idea of having this, what I can call a carte blanche from the United States and many other Western countries, that Israel has the right to defend itself without putting any lines or any definition to how it could defend itself by killing so many Palestinians, can create and is already creating a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. And we have to do everything in our power to do this. As you know, that in Saturday, of course, we had the honor today of having the Jordanian king. But in Saturday, we are going to have a big number of heads of states and foreign responsibles in Egypt to try to find a solution. And this is going to be a crucial point in the battle that is going on in Gaza now.
Right. Let me here divide what you said, sir, into sections. Let me first take the messages given by the President to the whole world, particularly during the past few days. And there were three major important messages given by the President. The first is that the displacement of Palestinians out of their homeland in Egypt or in Jordan is totally rejected by all sides and all the Arab countries and even the Palestinian ones. That is one message. The second message was his call of the escalation of the Israeli side that it has, or describing it as collective punishment and an unproportional use of force against Palestinians. And the third was the dire deteriorating situation in the Palestinian occupied territories, particularly Gaza, and the humanitarian situation on top of that. So, how do you view how the world saw the messages of the President, particularly that Egypt has always been the main support for the Palestinian cause?
Well, let me first start by saying that, I mean, it's during these times, unfortunately, that the whole world understands the importance of Egypt in such conflict. I mean, we always hear from time to time that Egypt's role is becoming minimal and that the contribution of Egypt is smaller than what expected. But because we don't want to interfere with the course of things as long as the situation is calm. But once there is the explosion that we've seen in the situation in Gaza and in Israel, everybody in the whole world is asking for Egypt's support so that this situation can be changed. Whether we're talking about the Palestinians on one side or the Israelis and its supporters on the other side. Everybody is asking for Israel, for Egypt. But having said that, I believe that the Israel willingness to restore any kind of peace is a very important thing. I mean, Egypt on its own, with all its efforts, cannot alone restore the situation. We have to have a partner. We have to have someone who has the political will to embark with us in this, and not to mention that we have to restart again the peace talks. Because if we calm the situation now, if we manage to restore peace without starting the peace process another time, I can assure you that this situation is going to repeat itself again. We didn't accomplish anything except death loss of life of so many people on the Palestinian side as well as on the Israeli side. So the Israeli have to understand that the peace is the only refuge they can go to in order to restore security in their borders. Without that, that means it's just a waste of time and a waste of lives.
Before I go to the Israeli side, because that has a lot to speak about, but let me here take the response of the international community at large. You respectively said that the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres here in Egypt has called for peace, has called for Israel to halt the escalation, and of course has called on Hamas to deliver the captives, and has called for the entry of aid to the Palestinian Gaza Strip and the Palestinian occupied territories. But we have seen the international body, or this international body, failing to issue a resolution condemning the issue and the Israeli attacks, and has failed twice, not just once, and has not been able to protect the suffering or the people from being or from suffering, and from the whole and did not put any kind of pressures on the Israeli side to stop. And that has been ongoing for decades now, 70 years. No resolution of the UN has been ever.
Exactly. We have just to mention that, unfortunately, the whole position, I mean, the position of every country in the world, as if it started the 7th of October, when there was the Palestinian hit or the Hamas hit on the Israeli territories. Actually, the whole world has to remember that the situation, as you just mentioned, have been there for decades. The real reason, the root of everything, is the occupation. And this is what is triggering everything. Let me tell you something. There is no need for Hamas if we have peace in Palestine. There is no need. Those militias are born because there is a lack of peace in their territories, and there is an occupation ongoing for the last 60 or 70 years. So without having an independent state for Palestinians, nobody can secure its borders. Unfortunately, this is a fact that everybody is neglecting. The situation did not erupt only when Hamas entered Israel and did the hit it did. And unfortunately, once again, that it was an unexpected hit, which considered, I mean, a certain degree of humiliation for the Israeli armed forces and for the Israeli Secret Service, that they could not know about this hit in the right time to prevent it. And that's why their wish to take vengeance of this is actually resulting of this collective punishment that we are seeing now. So that's why we have to listen to the wisdom of Egypt. But you mentioned something, and I would like to go back to this point. What His Excellency, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Guterres, said. The idea of him mentioning just the Israeli prisoners in Gaza, he is neglecting that there is thousands of Palestinians also in the Israeli prisons.
Indeed.
I mean, this double standard.
This is exactly.
About the prisoner. Yes, I know that there are prisoners. How about is it illegal to kidnap or to take or to apprehend any Palestinian and put him in jail simply because Israel is a state?
Even children.
Even children. We all know about many children. We followed all a few years ago, for instance, or sometime, this girl called Chad, who was put in the Israeli prison for some time. Nobody called her kidnapped. Everybody called her prisoner, as if done by Israel make it legal. Actually, it wasn't legal. And the situation now, I think that the Palestinians, their only hope, even though that I do not accept that, and I do not see the right position here about having those Israelis, especially civilians, with the Palestinians, can achieve something. But at the same time, we have to talk in a balanced way. There are also Palestinians illegally in Israeli prisons that has to be negotiated. I think this is the only card maybe now the Palestinians have, and can calm the Israelis in order to have their own people once again back. So there must be a swap of prisoners at some point, and I think the whole world who is asking for peace and to restore peace and to stop this collective punishment and the high toll of deaths in the Palestinian territories will have to resume to this point in order to solve the whole situation.
That's from one side, and we're speaking about an international body which is representing the whole world. Let me take it from the other side and the whole international community at large. And we've seen the unequivocal support of all the international community to Israel since the very beginning, even after the strike on the Baptist hospital. How do you view that, and how do you view the double standard the whole world is dealing with?
I mean, there is a certain policy that has been adopted before, and it's been re-adopted once again this time, which is just to try to make the reality and the facts vague. So nobody can condemn Israel, because we are not yet sure if this was really an Israeli missile or was it something of coming from the Islamic Jihad. And I think we've seen the same scenario with when Shireen Abu Akleh, the Arab American reporter, was killed. First, they mentioned that it was the resistance who shot her dead. A few months later, when the reality appeared and it turned out, as we have always known, that it was the Israeli who shot her dead. And the idea that it was too late for anybody to condemn, because a lot of water have passed under the bridge, as we say. And this is the same thing today. The whole supporters of Israel saying that we are not sure, so we cannot condemn Israel for such atrocity, because it might have came from the Palestinian side. Few weeks or months later, when we are going to be sure 100% that this was the act of the Israeli forces, and then it's going to be too late to condemn anybody, because it has already been several months ago. And this scenario has been adopted in many occasions before. And I think that the investigation that is following this case of the hospital has to give us a quick answer. Where did the bomb or the missile that hit the hospital come from? When we know that, then we can condemn Israel, because the whole world, and I believe most of them are fair or trying to be fair, when they will know for sure that this is an Israeli missile that hit the hospital, they have no other option but to condemn Israel on this mass murder that happened and took place in this place. If not, then the world is going to keep his double standards and keep a blind eye when Israel is committing the crime.
Your Excellency, if so, then why is the West Bank being hit? Why is Ramallah being hit? Why Jerusalem is being hit? Where are Hamas inside those areas? And the whole world are seeing that, and they also are keeping silent. Let me here take or reiterate or quote President Sisi's words when he spoke about two important issues. The first is that the continuous aggression will lead to no security or peace at all. The repercussion of such steps would lead to the instability of the whole region, and even he spoke out why exactly Egypt is totally rejecting the displacement of the Palestinians from their homeland. Let me take how the the statements of the president, and how do they reflect now to the international community?
Well, I'm sure that the international community is very much following every word the president is saying in this regard. And as you as you presented me to your viewers as a former ambassador, since I am not an ambassador anymore, but this will give me just some more freedom that I can talk. I think that if this will keep going on, the final situation is going to resolve as that we cannot have anymore the two-state solution. And this would mean, in the light of what the president has said, and before also we heard it 2 days ago from himself and from the King Abdullah himself, who said that Jordan and Egypt will never be the place for displacement of Palestinian to serve the Israeli government. So if Palestinians are going to stay on their land, and at the same time we are going to keep on having those atrocities and those attacks committed from the IDF, then I think that day after day the hope of having a two-state solution is diminishing and even disappearing. And we're going to end up with something that nobody wants to hear about, which is the one-state solution. I'm talking on a personal point of view. I cannot say that I represent my government or I represent Egypt in any way, but this is how I see it. I mean, is Israel really willing to have a two-state solution? As you mentioned in your words a few minutes ago, you said that even in areas where there is no Hamas, Israel is doing the same thing. She was raiding on Palestinian homes, or was attacking, kidnapping, taking prisoners, Palestinians, killing Palestinians, and the whole world is silent. All right? And those places do not have
Actually, the whole administrations, because we have started to see some responses from some nations. We've started to see since yesterday some of the protests erupting in some capitals around the world, right?
Yes, this is okay, but we are not expecting anything different from the Arab nations or the Arab peoples. Yes, they will do that, but we still need a partner. That's what I've been saying from the beginning of my intervention at this show.
I'm speaking about protests.
We need a partner who is willing to walk with us, take the path of peace. Do we have this partner? Until this moment, we haven't seen the Israelis, committed to this, even before the creation of Hamas.
Yes.
And Israel was not seriously committed to peace.
Indeed.
And this is not me. I hear many Israeli and Jews who are speaking about this point.
Yes,
for instance, Gadon Levy, who was the chief editor in Haaretz newspaper. He said that Israel was never prepared for peace.
Yes.
If Israel really was prepared for peace, she wouldn't have taken all these settlements.
Indeed,
never,
Your
not
Excellency.
one government have stopped building those settlements until today. So where is that peace that Israel is saying that it's ready for?
Unfortunately, Your Excellency, we have to end here. And yes, indeed, we all hope for peace. Your Excellency, Ambassador Medhat El Meligi, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much. And of course, the hope for peace, that's our aspiration here in the Middle East for this whole security and stability of the whole region. Before I end up, let me take this report. And Shukri strictly rejects displacement of Palestinians from the northern Gaza Strip, reiterates President Sisi's words. Many thanks for watching. Good night.